Well, good Monday morning, and thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. We have to update you on breaking news out of South Minneapolis. We're working to get new details about an overnight investigation near the McDonald's at 2nd and Lake Street. The scene is clear now. Our Audrey Russo's at police headquarters with what we know.
Good morning. We're expecting updates from Minneapolis police at some point this morning describing exactly what happened at that McDonald's along Lake Street. Now, the initial 911 calls in the early reports stated that there were 3 people who were stabbed, but again, those are details that we need to confirm with Minneapolis police. Now, the scene cleared around 4 a.m., but take a look at this video. This is what things looked like around 3 a.m. when the investigation was still in full swing. You can see officers walking around the premises. An area of about 2 blocks was taped off. Now, our photojournalist on scene said that he saw 2 people in handcuffs, but again, it's unclear if or how that's related to what happened here. Now, this comes about 24 hours after 2 early morning stabbings on Sunday. Both happened near nightclubs, one in the North Loop where a man was stabbed following a fight. No arrests have been made there. The other incident happened along 2nd Street North. 2 women were charged after police say a bouncer was stabbed. So it's been somewhat of a busy weekend for Minneapolis police. As for this McDonald's incident, again, we are still waiting for information from police, and we'll be sure to bring you those updates both on air and online. Back to you.
Right now, far-right activist Jake Lang is being held without bail in the Hennepin County Jail after a planned rally sparked fights and confrontations outside of City Hall on Saturday. The self-described anti-Muslim activist came to Minneapolis for what he called a freedom of speech rally promoted online using a racial slur. Our chopper captured 2 vehicles carrying Lang and others drive onto the sidewalk at City Hall as they were confronted by protesters. MPD says they arrested a total of 11 people, including 4 counter-protesters. The Minneapolis mayor and interim police chief say that more charges could be coming. Well, today, the man charged with burglary and a Minneapolis art heist will make his first appearance in court. Ricardo Bassett is accused of stealing around $80,000 worth of art from Hushka Studio back in June. Security cameras captured several people pushing a loaded cart from the gallery. At the time, 18 paintings and 60 prints were stolen. A search warrant reveals police recovered some of the paintings inside a storage unit that Bassett was renting in St. Paul. He is summoned to show up for court today, but is currently not in custody. We have exclusive new details from the Ramsey County Sheriff about how authorities plan to crack down on gangs at the Minnesota State Fair. Here's our Gordon Severson.
Well, this letter right here was given to me by the sheriff in Ramsey County, Bob Fletcher, and he says this was sent out to 233 young people who are either known gang members involved in Somali gangs or were present when crimes happened. And these letters were sent out after this ongoing issue of trying to keep some of these rival gangs out of the fair, preventing fighting. We know that 10 individuals were named in a lawsuit to try to keep them out of the fair, but one question we had was, what about other potential gang members? Would they still be allowed to the fair? Well, the sheriff says this is the answer to that question. This letter basically tells these individuals that their names have come up during investigations, that law enforcement knows who they are, and that if they show up at the fair and they're seen with any known gang members, all of that information will be documented and it will be used in future investigations. The sheriff tells me that a lot of these individuals will probably be surprised that law enforcement knows who they are, so he thinks that will be enough to scare them away from not committing crimes at the fair.
Well, this morning, counselors are on hand in a small Wisconsin town less than a week after a 17-year-old boy died after being hurt in a football game. Today's the district's first day of school, and in a message to families over the weekend, the superintendent of Alma Center Lincoln High School, which is about 45 minutes south of Eau Claire, says that senior Adam Massman passed away. Massman was playing in a game Thursday night when he was injured. Emergency medical staff tried to help him on the field before they took him to the hospital. Massman's mom posted on Facebook Saturday that her son had died. Massman's teammates are already paying tribute to him, painting his parking spot with the letters LLA for Long Live Adam.
You know, to feel this kind of loss is definitely one that will hurt for a long time. And as the kids have kind of quoted up, long live Adam.
Again, the district says counselors will be available for any students who need it. President Trump is preparing to carry out what he's calling unprecedented economic warfare against Iran, with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent set to detail the steps the U.S. will take and what the administration expects from other countries. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
Hi there. President Trump has for weeks now signaled a shift from military attacks to economic pressure to try to finally force Iran into a deal. But it's not just adversaries feeling a financial blow, and Americans are likely to wind up paying higher costs. New details coming today about what President Trump has called economic warfare against Iran, marking a new phase and focus in the nearly 6-month conflict. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent posting that today marks an economic D-Day and the single greatest financial offensive against an adversary, as he's expected to unveil punishing new sanctions against Iran and pressure on other nations doing business with Tehran.
This is going to be the greatest coordinated economic isolation in the history of the world, and we are going to them and saying you are either with us or against us.
Top Republicans backing the approach.
But I believe our allied nations are going to assist in the next phase as we'll get this finished.
But China, Iran's biggest economic ally, has so far resisted the crackdown while urging diplomacy. That as talks broke down with one of America's closest allies. Canada now hit with a 50% tariff on about $20 billion worth of U.S. imports, from dairy to clothes, building materials, and hockey sticks at President Trump's direction.
I love tariffs. I love the word. It's made us rich as hell.
Canada's prime minister pushing back, saying new tariffs on American goods are coming, including U.S. steel, dairy, and electronics.
Canada will match Washington's new tariffs dollar for dollar.
All as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce warned this week higher tariffs would damage both economies and drive up costs for American families. And that assessment from the chamber is because, remember, while tariffs are against another nation, it's American businesses importing goods that pay the higher costs and often pass them on to consumers. As for Iran, it says the, quote, desperate new sanctions it's facing will fail. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Well, right now, reaction is pouring in to President Trump's new plan he claims will lower beef prices. On Friday, Trump announced for the next 90 days, 300,000 metric tons of ground beef can be imported with no out-of-quota tariff. Trump says this beef will be sold at 25% below current market prices. The Minnesota State Cattlemen's Association says it's disappointed and does not support government intervening in the market this way. Some farmers, like Don Scheffelbein and Kimball, says it's a shot in the gut after starting to expand their feedlot capacity in an effort to help rebuild the U.S. cattle herd to drive down prices.
What he did on Friday was absolutely 100% counter to that incentive goal. Everything that we were building and trying to make all the incentives go to expansion, in one executive order or one trade agreement, he stopped cold in its feet.
The president says a deal will reduce prices for Americans while giving space for the U.S. herd to grow again. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association says this does nothing to create market confidence or encourage rebuilding the herd. Well, the first day of school is right around the corner for so many, and this morning, gubernatorial candidate Amy Klobuchar is taking a stand against phones in Minnesota's classrooms.
Too many classrooms across Minnesota and across the country. Teachers will spend the day competing for attention with a device that a child brings in their pocket. In my administration, we will help students learn and teachers teach by working with school districts to limit time spent on screens.
This is video of Klobuchar at Eisenhower Elementary in Hopkins from over the weekend. She says if elected governor, she would ban cell phones in all K-12 schools, with exceptions for medical needs and emergencies. She also wants school districts to set broader screen limit times. As kids head back to school soon, high prices and recent federal immigration enforcement is putting them in a tough spot. Raya Katene shows us how others are now stepping up to help in today's communities that care.
There are many students across the Twin Cities in need of backpacks and school supplies, but the people who are behind this drive say the need this year skyrocketed for families who were impacted by Operation Metro Surge.
Carlos Méndez con nuestra lucha.
The Backpack Drive is part of this larger event hosted by Nuestra Lucha Minnesota and Colonial Market on Penn Avenue, where families are gathering for cultural celebrations and to connect with local vendors. Viviana Salazar is the executive director and founder of the nonprofit Nuestra Lucha and says many families went without a steady income for months because of fears of leaving their homes at the height of ICE operations in Minnesota. This weekend, she says a total of 300 backpacks donated by the community are going to students whose families are still catching up on utility bills, rent, and mortgage payments.
A lot of these families either were paying with their credit cards, so now they're really behind on their credit card payments. So anything that we can offer them is helping.
And if you couldn't make it today, many of these vendors are here on Penn Avenue outside of Colonial Market for a flea market every Sunday. In Minneapolis, Raya Katane, KARE 11 News.
Be sure to stick with us. We got more news and weather coming up after the break.